One other thing to say, typical questions about this may relate to an accumulation of tissue fluid. And that accumulation of the tissue fluid causes swelling called an edema. Okay, and there are a number of reasons for that. One is the disease or the effect of malnutrition, which is called kwashiorkor, which is where with malnutrition there is a very low amount of protein in the diet, which means there are fewer of these plasma proteins. Now that means that the water potential of the blood in the water potential of the plasma inside the capillary isn't as low as it should be. Okay, so with kwashiorkor, with that lack of protein in the diet, there are fewer large plasma proteins, and therefore that effect of osmosis becomes reduced. Okay, so fewer plasma proteins. Now it becomes reduced, so there is less reabsorption of water at the venous end, which causes this accumulation of tissue fluid in the tissues, and that causes swelling. Typically, you might be familiar with children with what appears to be swollen abdomens. That's because there's a really large density of lymph vessels and lymph nodes around the digestive system, so you tend to get this edema forming around there. Other reasons for that may be caused by parasites. So the condition elephantiasis is caused by a parasite which reproduces in the lymph nodes. And typically with elephantiasis, you see people with really swollen legs. It tends to be. There are some other things. If you look up, you may see men with very swollen testicles, for example. And again, that's because those parasites reproduce in the lymph nodes. They block the lymph nodes and prevent this excess tissue fluid from being drained. And then that tissue fluid accumulates, causes an edema, which causes a swelling. Okay. I think that's everything. Tissue fluid formation and some of the typical questions that you might get about it. Essentially what we're looking for is, in an exam response, are a mention of the comparison between the hydrostatic pressure and the osmotic uptake at the different parts of the capillary. You must discuss where the higher water potential is compared to the lower water potential when discussing osmosis, and then you may need to relate that to the presence of those large plasma proteins which remain in the blood, which lower the water potential. That's everything. Thanks a lot.